Hey team, welcome to Inside the Movie Photographer with Jasin Boland. Today, I've got an interview with me, a little piece that I did for Nikon Australia and hosted by Chris Dalton. So I hope you enjoy it. There's lots of photos and lots of chat, and Chris is a damn good host. All right, hook into it.
Now, on to the star of the show. So joining us tonight is Nikon ambassador Jasin Boland. Jason is one of Hollywood's premier motion picture still photographers who's worked on films such as Disney's Mulan, Extraction, Mad Max Fury Road, Thor Ragnarok, Aquaman, Ghost in the Shell, 3 Jason Bourne films, 3 James Bond films, Captain Phillips, Everest, and The Matrix, just to name a few. Jason's work has been published in newspapers, magazines, billboards, and movie posters all around the world. Australian-born Jason is an ambassador for Nikon, Black Rapid, Aquatech, and VP International of the Society of Motion Picture Still Photographers. Welcome to Behind the Lens with Jasin Boland.
Hey team.
How'd I go, Jace?
You did pretty good. I was sitting there listening to it. It's like, wow, who's this guy? So so thanks. That was kind of cool.
I tried not to beat you up too much. You know, you said to me, don't build me up too much. Like, okay.
Yeah, I know. But when it starts to happen, it's kind of like, it's actually really nice. It's when someone else is saying it, it kind of makes you realize that, you know, there's a good career behind it. And, you know, it amazes me every day that I've managed to get this far. And you know, a lot of you guys that are here tonight, I know a few of you, and you know some of my stories about being fired and kicked out of photography school, and you know, I always say that success only comes from failure, and you know, we all are up against it at times, and you punch through, and you can be the photographer you dream to be.
Take it away, Jason.
Thanks, team. And I always start off with this shot, actually, of Charlize Theron. This is from a film that I shot in Berlin called Eon Flux. Now, the shot that you see here, she's actually, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the anime, but she's at the beginning of in the opening credits, she's always looking up and she catches a fly in her eyelashes. Now, obviously, I can't get straight over the top because of, you know, the science of it all. So I'm just down, you know, working my way around things and seeing what I can pick off. And then we were resetting and CT leaned over and we started having a chat. And I'm like, no way, you've got to stop. This is just absolutely beautiful. And it was with a D1X, you can see a little bit of noise from the old days there. But I just really I always like to open it up with this one because for me, I feel like it's a bit of a classic Hollywood actress image. And I like to share it because, you know, I don't like doing setups too much. Occasionally I have to do them. And by occasionally, I mean maybe once a week or twice a week if there's something that I really need and I can't get. But the rest of the time, I like to do what I call the director's performance because an actor is never going to give it any more than what they're giving the director. You know, I mean, the second cut is called, the shoulders drop down. You can almost see the energy expire out with the breath, and you know, you don't get it. But this was literally just her and I having a little chat and stopping it. So I guess it can be classed as a setup. So you know, it's worth doing from time to time. But yeah, I like to get that raw emotion, and so there you have it. So this is onto Extraction, which is the biggest Netflix release ever, which is kind of cool. Henzi here, I work with him a fair bit, and he's just what you guys think of him as being a solid human being. He's as solid as they get, and he's such a professional, such a sweetheart. He gives it everything. And this is a behind the scenes shot. He's just warming up before we go into a take. And I find these moments, as I was saying to you guys before, I don't do too many setups. I like to keep it fluid and organic. My time starts just before action is called. That's when I find that the actor's almost 100% as their character. And it's the moment before nuclear detonation. And these guys, for me, it's great because the mouths aren't moving. It's literally just the eyes. And as you know, with photography, when you're photographing people, it's all about the eyes. You know, it's all about the eyes and the eye line. And you can pick the photographers that, in my biz, that aren't so experienced because the eye line is off and it feels like they're a bit frightened. Don't be frightened. I mean, just because they're playing a scary character doesn't mean they are a scary character. Does that make sense? I hope so. It's worked for me in the past. But I do get frightened sometimes still, though. That's what I was saying, success only comes from failure. And, I have some hard days. Some days as well, but not with him. This is my mate Randeep Huda and Rudy, and this is from Extraction as well. Randeep, he's another solid human being. This guy, he was from Melbourne as a taxi driver, and he had a dream, same as all of us, and he didn't give up, and now he's one of the biggest stars in Bollywood and just made his crossover into Hollywood. So it's a good example of, it happens for all of us. Never give up. Now, I always like putting this one in, because it shows you guys how crazy a film set is. And I hope it makes you realize a little bit how hard it is for the unit still photographer to get a shot. I mean, you can be right next to a camera, but you've got to be fluid to be able to move out of the way. You've got to feel them before they're coming at you. And it can be really quick too. But I can't be in front of this camera. So I can't be up there next to the guys on the left. But I still have to find a shot. And I haven't got the tight shot of this, but it actually worked really good. But yeah, I just like to share this to show, the craziness on a film set. And it's all just like, because it's complete silence. It's quite an eerie, it's a very eerie place. It's almost like, one of those foggy mornings on the beach, and, it's like, where's Lucky? So here they go. This is one of my behind the scenes shots. My buddy AJ on camera, and there's another camera operator there, Mark Gelnick, and Chris there. Now, I never used to do so many behind the scenes, and I don't know why. I think I was just caught up with getting like poster shots, and as I've got older and I've got more comfortable in shooting, I've been able to just refine my style, so I know what I need. And then this is one of the loose shots which I can go and do. And for me, BTS or behind the scenes shots, my landscapes. And, through my role with Nikon, being a Nikon ambassador, over the years, I've been really lucky to judge a few competitions, and I really adore it. I get to meet a lot of the enthusiasts, and at the bigger talks, it's with some professionals. But, for me, the enthusiast is the very heart of photography. They're the guys that are before us putting food on the table. They have photography purely for love. And, sitting behind a desk or, wherever it is, and then come the weekend, it's just like bang, out there shooting. And, I'm a bit jealous of that, to tell you the truth. So, when I'm on a film set, this is what I do. These are my landscapes. These are my enthusiast photographs to a degree. And, on the weekends, I go hiking and do mountain stuff and take a little Nikon 1 or something with me. But yeah, these are my landscapes. So this is the sort of action that I like to shoot. I like to be in as close as what safety and an actor will allow me. And as a very famous photographer, Mr. Kappa, said, that if your photo's not good enough, you're not close enough. Now, that's not always the truth, because I do love a legendary long shot, as in a zoom or a long lens. But, you can't beat an action shot when you're like smacked in there. And, Chris has like belted me on the way through with his elbow. And, I knew that I had the shot when that happened. It was like, oh. And I feel a bit bad being so close, and I'll clear it. I'll sit there and go, you sure you're right? He's like, yeah. Don't worry about it. You're fine. So, okay. So, yeah, but we've got all safety gear on. I've got masks and headset. If it's fire or explosions, I'll have a fire suit on, and, there's harnesses. Everything's meticulously planned for safety. And, I'm a daddy, so I want to come home at the end of the day. So I'm not going to put myself in too much danger. I take some risks, but not something that'll stop me from getting back on a film set.
How do you stay out of the camera's way then, if you're that close to him at that stage? Are they not filming at that point?
Yeah, they'll be filming at that point, but, they might be filming it at a different angle. Some cases I can be in front of the camera, actually, because they'll be on a longer lens, or they'll be profile. In that case, the camera was to my right and Chris came in between the two of us. So yeah, that was good question. Whoever asked that, was it you, Chris?
That was me.
Is that a Chris? Oh, Chrissy, doing well, buddy.
Bonus points.
Yeah, thumbs up too. All right, Chris. So this is actually one of my first release images with my Z6. I say Z because I'm always in trouble because I call it the Z6, but it is in Australia. It's the Z6 anyway. This is at the end of Extraction. It was Chris's last shot. He'd been at it since 5 o'clock in the morning. As you can see, the guy's absolutely exhausted and he's not thinking about just, I'm going to my trailer. He's there, he stops, and it's like that thumbs up salute is for the crew and for everyone that put everything into it. And, you know, as I'm saying, it's turning into a bit of the Chris Hemsworth show, isn't it? He has respect for everyone. And you can, you know, we'll just ponder on it a little bit. It's, you know, that's how hard he works. And I love the S lenses, how they have this little sparkle to them. You know, I mean, that's directly into sun, you know. I mean, there's a little bit of flare there. I love flare though, by the way. I love a dirty lens. I love a little bit of degeneration to an image. I think it makes it real, you know. It's like looking at a face that's perfect. It's like, it gets a bit boring after a while. But yeah, dirty up your images. They don't always have to be perfect. So this is Matty D. And this is the very first shot that I did with him on Bourne Supremacy. We shot this in Berlin. And this is on a camera rig. So it's on like a little trailer being towed behind the car is. And then behind it, you can see, you know, just some lights from the police that are chasing him. Now, this is a setup and it's one of the rare setups. And I look at it sometimes and I forget that it's a setup. But this is, you know, again, someone like Matt will give it to you everything. And this is actually on the way back. So they were driving it back to reset. And it's like, hey, Tiger, jump on. You can have a crack. It's like, oh, awesome. So a bit of a story, which I like the story anyway. The first day, this is the first day that I met him. As you can see, he's got makeup on his hands. So it was freezing. It was like -6 or 7 or something. Probably like it is down there for you guys at the moment. And he's got his hands in these hand warmers, and it's like a little, you know, sausage kind of a thing, because you can't use gloves because it'll take all the makeup off. And his dresser, Barnaby, he's there, and it was this bright red thing, and it was the first day, and so everyone's like really wary of paparazzi and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, really inconspicuous that, eh, mate? And that was like literally the only thing I said to him the whole day. And then the next day he turned up and he had black ones, and I thought, job done. So there you go. Now, this is from Jason Bourne. I did 3 Bourne movies, Supremacy, Ultimatum, and Jason Bourne. And this is I wanted to put this in, you know, every time I do one of these, it's completely different. I have a different idea of what I want to do. And plus I'm conscious of that there might be the same people that are interested again. So I try and mix it up as much as possible. Now with this shot, we had to really fight for this. They wanted a first release image from the film and for day one. And I'd just been on another film with Matt called The Great Wall. And all through it, he was talking about, we're not phoning it in, mate. It's like, this is it. And so I had to give the studio a selection of images. They were leaning towards this one, which was just a slate, which is the thing in the background, a slate in front of his face. And it's like, it's too cheesy. And so I got with Matt that night and it's like, listen, this to me says you're not phoning it in. You're in the best shape of your life. Your head's right in the space. And this is the moment that I'm talking about, you know. This is the slate about ready to come down. And this is, you can see it. He's Jason Bourne. And just quickly deviate. But when Matty does his Jason Bourne, all he does is bring his eyebrows down a little bit. It's really quite interesting to see how actors get into their character. And so, yeah, so I like to show this because there's a lot of pressure to get these shots. And this was the one that went out there and, you know, literally broke the internet. And it's kind of cool. That's the other thing too. Is like, you know, talking about images like this and some of the other ones. I mean, a lot of you guys probably hadn't heard of me, or my colleagues before, and some may not even realize that this is a job. But although no one knows our names, we're probably the most published photographers on the planet. And I hope by the time that we get through tonight, that there's, you know, 1 or 2 images from here that you've seen of mine, or, you know, at least other photographers somewhere down the line. But there's very few photographers, I think, that would be as published as the unit still photographer. And the anonymity is, it's kind of cool, you know. It's hard to turn it into Instagram followers, but, you know, it still works.
So 2 things. You used a technology there, phoning it in. What does that mean?
Oh, phoning it in just means going down easy street, you know, not putting any effort into it. It's just like, okay, oh yeah, I'm going to phone it in. You know, instead of turning up to work, you phone it in.
Okay, if I was cool, I would have understood that. Right.
Are you cool, Chris? This is Corey Creed, who gold medalist on X Games, 2 gold medals, and also for Nitro. He holds the world record for the highest motocross jump off a quarter pipe. Now, he was gracious enough to let me come out and shoot some stuff with my D6, this quite little knife, just quietly. So he called me out, and I've been shooting this special project with him, and this is one of the shots that he released. Now, this camera, I've been talking, as I was saying before about Moose and Delhi, they've both got them, and we've been comparing notes, and if you need this camera, you need this camera. Now, for me, it's the equivalent, and probably a little bit more actually, of the jump between a D4 or a D4S and a D5. And for those whose lives are governed by shutter speed and low light, it's imperative. You know, I mean, like, I shot some skateboarding with it, and at 6400 ISO, I'm getting a completely black sky, and I've never seen that before. It's quite something else. You know, the X-Speed 6. It's like with the autofocus. Now, this is the reason why I have this is because I shoot with 3D focus, and so I'm lying underneath the jump. So he's come over the jump, right? So I'm lying under the jump blind. As soon as he comes into frame, I'm whipping the camera around and following him while I'm shooting. So the second he comes into my frame on 3D, and I'm just like bringing it down and around like that, and, you know, but fast. So I need a camera that can keep up with me, and that's why I use the 3D autofocus, because it, you know, it tracks like that. But the thing that stood out for me on this was the backtracking. Now, I don't know if you guys shoot action, but shooting a subject that's going away from you at speed can be tricky with cameras, with any camera. The D5 has been pretty good at it, but I have to say the D6 is blowing it away from that point of view. And the other thing about the 6 too for me is that it's a little bit more intuitive, because some of the, you know, like the live view and the silent mode in it have taken many features from the Z system. So for, you know, it's kind of nice to have those, although, you know, it's not what the camera's built for, but if you need it, it's there, so to speak. So, you know, it's really it's taken it up quite a big level. And, you know, for me, it's only autofocus and low light, but for others, there's connectivity, and, you know, you can use SnapBridge and stuff like that with it now, which is really rad. You know, but that's the thing with Nikon that I've always found with the smaller bodies, the enthusiast level cameras, is that a lot of the features that are in them, I'll get 2 years later in my professional cameras, and it's like I'm like, oh God, you guys have got this early. It's like, and, you know, we'll sit there and it's like, oh, I wish we had wish we had this and wish we had that, and then it'll turn up. So I think it's a bit of a tribute, you know, to Nikon, that they have the respect to, you know, put these in the cameras for the enthusiasts to be our testing ground, so to speak. Anything you need to say, Chris, before I move on?
No, I'm looking forward to this series. This is really, I think it's quite a powerful series, so I'm looking forward to this.
Thanks, bud. So when I was a young photographer, I mentioned earlier, you know, about the whole, and I'm going to bang on about it, success comes from failure, is that I was kicked out of my photography class on the first day. And and thinking back on it, as much as I was upset about it, I think I understand it a little bit more now. And what happened was I turned up, I was working at a newspaper as a cadet photographer. I turned up, I sat down, and the teacher went around all the photographers, all the students that were there. It's like, oh, you know, tell me what your name is and what would you like to do? What, you know, what sort of photography? And, you know, it was like Susan. It's like, yeah, I would like to be a commercial photographer. And then it was like, you know, Pete. And it's like, yeah, my name's Pete. I want to be a fashion photographer. And then it got to me. It's like, my name's Jason. I want to be a war photographer. And he goes, oh, sorry, what'd you say? I said, oh, my name's Jason. And he goes, no, the other part. I go, I want to be a war photographer. And he said, well, there's no room for you in my class, so can you leave? I was 17 or 16, and then I ended up having to go back to, it was a Tuesday, ended up having to go back to my boss at the newspaper, to Jules, and he goes, hey, kid, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, and he could see I was really worried because I was always in trouble. I used to sleep in the dark room so I wasn't late for work after going out all night, just a little sidebar. And so he was... So he's like, oh, come in, what happened? Told him the story. And then he got a big smile on his face. And I said, oh, do I have to go back? And he goes, no, you passed that class. And then 3 weeks later, I won the Australian Cadet Photographer of the Year award. So, so it was kind of, you know, it was kind of cool, you know, but at the same time, it was 1981. So it wasn't that long after the Vietnam War, and I think maybe, you know, that had something to do with it, and, you know, war's not good. But I was obsessed with it as a young kid, you know, reading dispatches, and I just read everything about the war. And so people like Tim Page and Ann Capper and McCullen and all that, they were big influences in my life. And so for this film, I wanted to challenge a lot of Tim and shoot the slow shutters, which is what I've done here with... you know, the helicopter. I think I was shooting like 15th of a second, but the main thing I wanted to do was I wanted to give a little bit of life to the body bags. And you can see the one, you know, the bottom 3 or 4 has got a lot of movement, as with Travis's pants and yeah. So I wanted to make it as real as possible. And I try and do that. I try and give all the films that I work on a little bit of a theme. I treat it like it's a real environment. What's happening in front of me is real. I'm not stupid enough to actually believe it, but it helps me to get into it if I'm in character a little bit. And so, you know, I don't really study things of the times, but, you know, I know these images, you know, like with Everest, for example. I wanted to shoot that with a Nikon DF. The disaster happened in 96, and we were up Memorial and Base Camp, which is Memorial's 5,164 meters or something. And that's hard work, man. I'm telling you. I don't know. I'm sure there's some people. I wanted it to be as real as possible. So, you know, I wanted to be embedded with the cast. And when they were looking at me taking photographs of them, I didn't want them to see a brand new digital camera. I wanted them to see something that looked a little bit like a film camera. And that's, you know, that's where I went. Now, this shot of Travis, although it's an okay image and it's what I would call one of my safety shots, I mean, I have to get it. It's an important beat in the movie. It's when, if you guys haven't seen this movie, by the way, it's magnificent. It's unbelievable for the budget that it was shot on. The acting is incredible. It's one of the best Australian ensemble casts that you're ever going to see. But for me, it's an unremarkable image. I mean, it's a nice image. You know, I look at it, it's fine. You know, I wouldn't hate myself if it was used as a standalone. But I wanted to show these because I get asked all the time about where poster images come from and how they develop. And I've got a few posters in here tonight, actually. But, okay, so you look at this. I think we can all agree that it's an okay image. It's not anything brilliant. But the marketing department on the other side will go through every one of my frames. And I could deliver 100,000 frames on a film. And they will trawl through everything looking for a poster. And then they'll do it. And that's a little bit of an irregema, I guess. You know, they find these images and then they make a poster out of it. And to me, it's really cool because, you know, I'm just the architect. I'm the guy out there on the ground that's there to get the images for them. You know, they'll spend bucket loads of money making posters, and to think that there's these people that will look at my image and go, you know, a little bell will go off, and then they make that. So, you know, it's kind of cool to think where they come from. Oh, there's me. That was like 87 when I was working in Hong Kong for the South China Morning Post. So this is in Olo in Cebu. And we went down there to do a story on the MNLF were kidnapping foreign correspondents. So they're only keeping them for like 24 hours. So just for publicity. So we thought we'd go down there and try to get kidnapped, but they never did. I did have an AK-47 shoved in my throat though, which was kind of an interesting moment. And this is just because it's my old days. This is where I came from in my newspaper days. So this is in Busan. It was the first day that the riot police were overtaken by the students. The guy on the right, the student on the right, he's like ripped the mask off, and you know the poor. Well, I say poor policeman. I shouldn't say that, but the poor. They're all in this together. The year beforehand, half the police force were university students doing the protests. So I don't know if it's changed now, but it hadn't then. And the guy with the Casio had turned around. I'm right in the middle of it too, by the way. So I'm rounded up, taking shots, and he's pulled out this little pen knife. It's like a little apple peeler, and he's like, "No photo." And I think I laughed. It was a bit rude of me to do that, but you know, you get caught up, and yeah. So this is the front page of the International Herald Tribune, and they say that if you have the front page of the International Herald Tribune, you have the best photograph in the world that day. So I'm going to hold on to that. Doesn't necessarily mean that it was, but back in the late 80s, it was pretty good. And funnily enough, right, my mum and dad were in holidaying, and they were flying back from Europe to come and see me in Hong Kong. And of course, it's before mobile phones and, you know, communication, pretty much, before the digital world. My dad has bought the paper, and he sat down on the plane, and he's like, looked at it and seen my name. And they were only going to Hong Kong to see me for one night. And he's turned around to my mum and showed her. And she, oh, that's so nice. And Dad's gone, no, I think that means that we're not going to see him in Hong Kong. And so they didn't. I was stuck in the middle of a riot. So this is another person that I like to work with, Luke Evans, Lukey Luke, who I think should be the next James Bond, just quietly. He's such a handsome devil. But this is another one of these poster shots which I wanted to show you. Again, this I would probably call one of the safe shots too, by the way, Chris. Sometimes an actor will pick you as an eye line, which can work really well. Other times it doesn't. But when they do that, you quite often get a poster or something like that out of it. So this is, again, another one of those shots that, you know, the people in marketing have trawled through. It's been used. It's going to be used as a standalone. It's a solid shot. I'm happy with it. I think anyone would probably be pretty happy with it. Because I shoot action films, I get a lot of posters. They do bring photographers in, specials photographers, and they'll spend a week or even sometimes just a day, but they'll shoot the entire cast for character shots and everything else you can think of. And they want the poster as well. You know, it's a bit of a competition. You know, I remember on Mission Impossible 2, that I think it was Herb Ritz came out, and everyone was like teasing me. It's like, oh yeah, Herb's going to get your poster. And it's like, nope, no, he's not. And he didn't. I got it. It was that beautiful profile shot, flames in the background, and you know, they use a lot of profile shots for him, which are kind of cool. So back off my deviation. So this is Luke, and then same thing. It's the same shot. So, you know, this is how my posters come alive. So, you know, you get different cracks at it. I love a poster as much as anyone. You know, it's like, you know, it means that you've got the one image that the studio, which, you know, these are massive marketing budgets, that someone sat there and gone, this one image tells the story for the whole film. And then they build on it from there. So, you know, it's very cool.
You didn't shoot the legs of this though, did you? Or is the legs taken from another shot?
Yeah, that could be a different element. The legs would have been taken from a different shot that I did. So in some shots, there can be 5 or 6 different elements. And, you know, I deliver a lot, especially with the action, because in some instances, they could just use an arm. You know, you could have the whole main body of the image, but there'll just be one little bit which they'll want to change. And, you know, they'll put an arm in or a leg or, you know, just whatever. And I've got a shot coming up, which, you know, I want to talk about is, you know, sometimes we don't even know it's our shot. And I could be away on location and not have the hard drives. And you can't remember. It'll be like, I swear that's one of my shots. And there's a couple that I'll put in here tonight to illustrate that very scenario.
Do you set your camera up at shooting an aspect ratio of 16:9?
No. I mean, I do sometimes, but it's the wrong science. I mean, this, for example, you know, you very rarely see magazines or web pages or, you know, anything 16:9 unless it's a screen grab. I'll do it sometimes just to get rid of some gear so no one has to crop it. But to be honest, I actually forget that I have it on 16:9 and I'll shoot the whole day with it on 16:9 and I'll look at it when I go to edit and it's like, what? I swear it should have had something else in it. So I try not to. I'm not that bright, just so you guys know. I do forget a lot of things.
And so post-production is done not by you. So you essentially get to the end of the day or the end of the film and all of your images go to someone else who then decides how to color it. So those, the war photos we saw before, were they shot by you in black and white?
Only like a situation like this where it's turning the image from that into a poster. I mean, like, I get down to it. I'll chat about it further when we get down to Mad Max. But, you know, a lot of the colouring is, I'll do the colouring. I'll come up with the idea all on my own, so to speak, and then, you know, see how it goes. And a lot of the time that will be adopted by the filmmakers. Not all the time. And it also depends on the film. If it's contemporary, I don't really bother about it. But if it's a futuristic world or post-apocalyptic, which is my favourite, then I'll go to town and have a play. And if it gets adopted, it does. But I do my selects every day. You know, it helps for the photo editor back in the States to go through the images. You know, a lot of the time now, that nearly all the time it'll be my selects and my edit that gets used. You know, if they need an image either side, they'll do it. Like, for example, with Mulan, which we get into a bit later. Well, actually, with all my Disney films and Marvel now, is I have to record my recipe. So I do smart objects in Photoshop and I record the whole process so that if there's an image from that scene or an image either side or whatever, they can come and replicate it. And then sometimes I'll send it to me to have a look, but, you know, they get it right and, you know, I trust them. And, you know, that's why I continue to work for them, I guess. Big dog. This is really fun. This like filled up to water up to nearly up to my neck. It was a pretty intense scene. I don't know if you guys have seen Aquaman. Jason Momoa, great guy. Lets me do, you know, same as Chris Hemsworth and Matt Damon, lets me get in there. And it was hard keeping water off the lens for this. I can remember that. And I'd have a towel, which I'd have behind me tucked down my shirt so that it wasn't getting wet. And I just have to bring it around and clean my, I use a Aquatech splash housing, the yellow submarine, I call it. And, you know, just give it a bit of a clean and, you know, back at it. Right. Okay. Now, I was away. I can't remember where I was, but I think I might have been on Mulan. The same thing as I was saying to you guys before. I didn't have my hard drives with me, and I'm like, damn, this really looks like one of the shots that I did of Black Manta. And I'd been messing around with James Wan, the director, and we did some setups on the first day that they had finalised the look of the suit. So he comes down and we're going through it, and James is like doing his stuff. He's like loves photography. He's a really clever director. He's Australian too, just quietly, and he's quite amazing. And so I get back, it gets released, and I'm like, oh damn, I really like that. I wanted to claim it, as we all do. And so when I got back, I went through the hard drives and I found the setups that I did, and there was like, you know, probably 200 images or something. And I'm going through it and I was like, oh, I don't know. I can't work out whether it's mine. And then it came down, you're going to love this. Well, I hope you do, because this is how I have to work out whether it's my shot, because no one will ever really tell you. And because it's gone from the photo department to marketing and they just forget, you know, they don't know who shot it. You'll have the other photographer that has come over to do the character posters that claim it as well. So can you see the little highlight? Now that's an overhead silk. That was the only way that I could tell 100% that this was my image. So, and when you do, it's like, yay, break the champagne out. It's fun, you know. It's nice when you've got a job that not only excites you the days that you're there, but a year later, you know, you can see an image and you can just get that heart going again. That makes you feel proud that you worked on it. Now this is Scarlett Johansson, who is just an absolute dream to work with. And I love, as I said to you guys before, I love BTS, and I might spend 4 months, 6 months on a film, and you only sometimes get maybe 10 to 20 great BTS shots that you like. Sometimes, you know, only 3 or 4. This one's a bit of a rarity because it's got everything. She's in character, just about ready to pounce into it. You know, I've shot this and then I've run around to the side. And, you know, it's just one of those shots that, you know, it all came together. You got the director, you got the boom. I love a good boom in shot in a BTS. You got the cameras on the left. There's just a lot going on, and it shows you, you know, the intensity of everyone. It's not just the intensity of the actor bringing along their A game. It's everyone in that frame. You know, everyone's come to the party. And then this is the same scene, but from the side. So, you know, it's, as you can see, it's the same pose. And yeah, so there you go. Now, I think we're into posters now. Right, now this is a classic actually. Not the photograph, but the story. So these shots came out, and these 2 posters. Out of this, I think I got, out of 6 posters, I think I got 5 of them or 4 of them. Anyway, there was a photographer that did the specials, awesome photographer. You should have a look. If you want to have a look at other guys that do specials, which are different to mine, have a look at Marco Grob and Ramsey, and also Greg Williams. Greg Williams probably does the most beautiful celebrity images that you're going to see from Hollywood in the last 40 or 50 years. I mean, his work's astounding. Anyway, same thing again, away. And I was only away for the week, I think. But he's on his Insta, he's gone, oh yeah, you know, and my latest shoot from Ghost in the Shell, Scarlett Johansson, as usual, photographed with my Hasselblad and lit by my beautiful Edelcom lights. And then I had to email him and say, well, actually, these are shot on my beautiful Nikon and lit by the sky. And this is another example of how my images get used. And a lot of photographers will walk away from green screen days because they don't think there's anything in it for them. But for me, I get many, many posters from green screen days. And, you know, especially being an action photographer, or action film photographer, I should say, it really produces some great stuff. And, you know, I've got to be able to look at an image and blank out that green. As you can see, I've shot it vertical. So I was thinking of the poster in mind. So yeah, I've shot it knowing that it had potential to be a poster. So she was about to beat him up, and there you go. Oh, I forgot what order I had these in. Okay, this is awesome. And I don't mean awesome as in this photograph's awesome, but there's nothing wrong with liking your own photos, and there's nothing wrong with going back through your back catalogue either and finding images. So I like to put this one in because with Bond, I've done 3 Bonds now, Skyfall, Spectre, and B25, the latest one. But I only do action unit for them, whereas everything else in my career, I've been main unit photographer. But a long time ago, I was suggested that I contact them to have a crack. And it was actually, it's a pretty good story because I sent them an email, and then about 3 or 4 months later, I get this letter, typed letter and signed on 007 letterhead. And it's like, you know, sorry, Jason, we haven't got anything for you at the moment, but we'll keep you in mind should anything happen. And so I'm like, oh, well, you know, I tried. And, you know, that's the most important thing is you got to keep grafting and not give up. So 2 years later, I get a phone call from Eon, which is a production company that make the Bond films. And I was like, hey, would you like to come and join us on second unit, or what we call action unit? And I got the call. I couldn't believe it. I mean, when I was a kid, the first film I went to see was without my mum and dad was Live and Let Die. And so I think that it kind of had me chasing this. So with this is a rig setup. It's a 50mm on a D4 and exposure's 800th of a second at f2. Now, when I do my rigs, I always shoot with a practical camera as well. So I'm holding up a camera, and then in the side, I'm doing my zoom like this, but I've also got a pocket wizard, so I'm setting them off. If you put the pocket wizard on the top of the hot shoe, it doesn't go when you want it to go. So then about 100 yards or 100 meters down the track, I'm there with my practical camera, which is a D4S with a 200 f2, same exposure. And as you can see, I'll just flick through them. So this is on my remote. This is on my practical camera. To do this, I keep very safe. I have a stunt team that will look after me. I'm usually assigned one guy. In this case, it was Frosty. And this is the alleyway. So where the light is down there, that was where we were. Obviously, the light was switched off when we shot. But you can see how narrow it is. And literally, Frosty is standing there. He's got a hold of my Black Rapid strap and onto my sash harness. And as the DB10 has flown through the air, it's like it's doing probably 60, 70 kilometers an hour or miles an hour. I'm not too sure, but it's pretty damn fast. And as he's coming, I'm shooting out of that doorway to get that shot. And as the car comes flying past, he pulls me into the doorway. Now that's so in case, it can go sideways. All the care in the world is taken. But if something happens, he's got me pulling me in, and anything that comes off the car is just going to sail past, and I'm perfectly safe. As you can see there's the DB10. You can see how narrow it is. There's only maybe a meter each side that's free. So yeah, I love talking about my rig. So I had to bring it up early. At the moment on Bond, on this last one, I've been running 4 and 5 cameras, and it's like really cool. I used to only run 1 or 2, but now it's like, hey, if I can shove a camera somewhere, I'll go and put it I'll just mount it on anything. I mean, I have platypods, which are these real little sleds, and they're really cool. And I put them on cars. You see a few of the rigs coming up. So this is the shot. You can see us down there checking out my little camera up the top, which is the D750. And this is also from a remote, obviously. And then I ended up shooting, I had another camera over to the left. You can see a dolly getting set up. And then I was under the tree shooting, I think. But so far out of this, they've run from this one scene, on this one take, they've run like 4 photographs, I think. Yep, there's another one there. That was from the same setup. And Bond is the only one that I get to do these with. It's, Mad Max I do, but with Bond, all I get to concentrate is on the action. And it's quite liberating because there's no actors. It's just me and a bunch of people that just love James Bond. And trust me, it's all we talk about literally all day. How are we going there, Chris?
That aerial shot, there's a lot going on. Yeah, that one. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And so the papers and there's looks like chairs and a whole heap of stuff. Are they items that are set on fire and blown out for effect, or what's going on there?
No, you can see that there. That's because the DB5, which is no secret, it's in all the trailers. It has machine guns in the front coming out of the lights, and he's doing a big donut burnout, and he's just like spraying the bad guys. So it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun, honestly. Seriously, we all just sit there and talk about Bond all day. What would 007 do here? And it's like, would 007 beat Jason Bourne? Would he beat? And it's very funny. So yeah, it was, and it's quite challenging, I love shooting my action, and a lot of the times on the big stunts, you only get one crack at it. So you've really got to rely on your gear and, trust your judgment. I'm a guy that, picks a lens and I commit to it. So it's there. This is a pretty rad story, actually, because we're all set up. It was at the very end of the day. We had what's called an edge arm or a Russian arm. It's like a Libra head, which is a stabilized head on top of a car. And these vehicles will track at like 100 mile an hour, 160 Ks. Sorry for talking miles and yards and stuff, but it's years of being a soda and gas guy working in Hollywood, I guess. So we were all set up. We had another camera position near here. and he was meant to just drive the DB5 straight out. But at the last minute, they decided that he was going to pull out of the donut and come into this. So we had to get out of the way. And it was literally, I had less than a minute to reset this up. So I hit it near a fruit and veggie cart, shoved my camera in on a tripod, and just guessed where it was, what was going to work for it. And I have a formula for manual focus. And so I always use manual focus for the rigs. So I know where it's going to be. And you'd be surprised actually how much depth you can get out of setting it to the right thing. But my next problem was that I then had to find somewhere to fire it. And because I couldn't be there was nowhere to be, because otherwise if something went wrong with the exit of the DB5, I'd get crushed. And, safety is paramount, and it's, we work out everything to get home at night. So the only place I could go was inside the church, and it was behind these, what these European churches are like. This is in Matera in Italy. And it was like this thick. So I've got a pocket wizard, and I'm like, oh my God, pocket wizards do not like metal. So I go in there, and I've got a couple of relays outside, and I'm in there holding it as high as I can. And then I got 3 frames off, and all 3 frames are actually really quite stellar. Now, this gives you a good idea. You can see my little D750 mounted as you're looking at it, to the right, just level with the lights. So this is how I mount my cameras. So I'll put the scaff mount on, and then I'll have a magic arm, which holds it stable and tight. And then I'll also have a wire safety from here onto the scaffolding so that it doesn't fall off. If it falls off, it literally can kill people. And especially at the speeds that they're going, anywhere from 100 to 160 kilometers an hour. And it's, it's pretty rad. So here's another one of my rigs. This is D700, I think. So this is on the super fast rig. So this next shot that I'm going to show you is probably at about 100 miles an hour. So you can see down here how the guys have got it all set up as tight as possible. And it has to sit flush. And the way that the framing is, my framing can look a little bit sloppy because I can't adjust it. So there's a lot of bottom room usually, but sometimes it works, like for here. And I was telling Chris earlier that with this shot, because I was looking for that rig to show you guys, and I was scanning through this day, and this is a shot I took 8 years ago or more. And I didn't like it just didn't interest me. And whereas today it does, and I only found it a few days ago when I was looking for some photos, as I was saying, but it really goes to show, I'm sure you guys are the same, right? It's like you go back exploring through your back catalogue and you're like, why didn't I see that? It's pretty crazy. Hey, do you guys also, when you look at photos, because I'm just remembering now, it's like nearly every photograph I've taken, I can remember a story from the day, and give me a thumbs up or a down, whatever. But it's I don't know, it embeds in our brains. It's pretty cool. So this is how I have to hide my rigs as well, and then I'll go and say to visual effects, I'll point them out, and they'll make a note so that they can paint them out when it comes to being the time, and it just makes it a little bit easier. Although the way that is behind leaves is more difficult for them. It's actually easier for you to be in front than behind. But the action is so fast that no one would even see that. Oh, this is really cool, okay? Which I haven't shown this one to anyone in a long, long time. And I talk about how I set my rigs up. Now, when I said that with the platypod, I have it's on a little sled. And the reason, and I try not to hard mount anything except for when it's on a moving vehicle for safety. The rest of the time I have it so my cameras can actually fall over, or at least move, so the impact is taken away. I know it's terrible to say, but I do have an amount of risk that I put my cameras through. But this doesn't say much yet, but follow that left-hand wheel, and you'll see it as it gets closer, and then boom, and it takes out my D4. I'm going to do that one more time because I love watching this. So boom, boom, bang. And it literally just knocked my camera over the tripod. So I wouldn't have the back leg so that it holds it. I would have it so that it can fall. And I mean, like if you're doing stuff like this, you could put a mattress there. You know, in my case, it was snow, so it wasn't too bad, and just picked it up, dusted it off, and off we go again. But, you know, that's Nikon really, isn't it? And my first Bond poster. Now, I know I sound like a big kid because I am, but, you know, I can get excited about a Bond poster, especially, as I said, you know, my first movie without my mum and dad was Live and Let Die. And, you know, I mean, to get a Bond poster, it means a lot to me. It's, you know, you can probably take away all the other posters that I've had and give me this one. You know, it's got some good traction. People like it. There's a couple of different elements there to it. It was the shutter speed I shot it at. I think I shot it at, he was starting the run. I think it was like 30th of a second, because I wanted to get a little bit of movement in the wheels. And, you know, it's nice, you know, when you take these risks, that the stuff that looks like Photoshop is actually what you've done yourself. And, you know, I mean, photography, there's no rules in photography, you know. And, you know, as you guys know, it's like, it's go out there and trailblaze, you know, risk everything. And, you know, I have to shoot my safety, but once I've got my safety, then it's time to have fun. And I think, you know, especially with mirrorless now, you know, you've got this big, bright EVF and, you know, everything's live. You're able to put your brain in with the camera, you know. I mean, like it's all up here now. You know, this is an important one for me, actually, because I shoot manual on 99% of everything I do. Now, I was talking to Moose Peterson the other day, and he actually shoots aperture priority and uses the compensation button. And Delicar, he uses manual like myself. For me, I think that you've got a lot more control over the camera. You know, as much as you're a team with your camera, you have to be the boss. You have to be the one that tells it what to do. And I just think with manual, especially with the enthusiast, and I don't know how many of you guys are enthusiasts as opposed to professional here, but it teaches you to see the light. Back to when, you know, I was a darkroom technician and working on newspapers, it was film. And my boss, he used to take the light meter battery out of my camera so that I had to guess the light. Now, you're not necessarily guessing the light anymore with mirrorless, but you are able to, you know, click it in, what you've seen. You know, when we're taking a photograph, it's appealing to us because we've seen it. We've seen it before it's in the camera. Shooting manual allows us to remember the actions that got that reaction, so to speak. Whereas when you are shooting with a automatic mode, you can't remember how you achieved it. It's almost a little bit of luck that you got it. And, you know, especially in my case, I can have a muzzle flash, or I can have an explosion, you know, just stuff that we all get every day, and that'll trick the exposure. So, you know, and in everyday cases, it's a highlight from sun on the ocean, or bounce from a building back onto you, whatever. You know, it can trick the camera and be in control. Show your system who's the boss. Anyway,
Jace, you've talked twice about safety here. Of course, your own physical safety, and then, of course, the safety shot. What you're referring to there is getting the shot that is in the bag, shall we say. Can you just define your safety shot, what that looks like?
Well, my safety shot is your standard, what's telling the story for the scene or the whole movie, you know, whether it be portrait or what they've set up for, what the director of photography set up to shoot. You know, that's a safety shot. And then you go and cut loose a little bit, especially with action. What works for their camera doesn't necessarily work for mine. I mean, like, I had a friend of mine, Helen Sloan, who was the photographer on Game of Thrones, and which I still have never seen an episode, just so you guys know. So it's of a horse rearing, and that shot of the horse rearing from where the director of photography and the director were shooting it from meant nothing. But she's come around to the side and got this magnificent shot of this horse rearing up, you know, almost stomping the cameraman and stuff like that. So it's not even a matter of thinking outside of the box. It's just a matter of not being influenced by what someone else is doing, you know. Too many times, you know, in my newspaper days, it would be a pack of photographers that would swarm together, and I'd walk off on my own and go and find my own little shot. at big risk that I was going to miss out on getting a shot. But at the same time, I didn't want to get what everyone else did, to the point that the other picture editors were telling their photographers, you follow Skippy. One of you has to follow Skippy. And it was kind of, it was cool at first, but then it got a little bit boring when they just like followed me around and, you know.
So to clarify that, Jace, if you're on assignment, you've got a thing to shoot a particular person, you get that safe shot, you get that shot done, and then you go and have some fun with maybe being a bit more creative.
Absolutely. I'll show you. I'll give you an example when it comes up.
And this shot here, is this handheld or is this a
No, I'm right. I'm literally like a meter away from him. It was just him doing a little bit of a burnout into the stunt, so to speak. Right. Oh, we're on to Mad Max. Now, Mad Max for me was, and still is, a massive highlight for me. It wasn't always smooth sailing. I had to fight for everything. This is Nicholas Hoult, Nuxie. When I'm shooting action, I like to shoot as slow a shutter speed as what I can. This is not too slow, but I like to get a little bit of movement in, you know, anything that's fluid like sand or water, or I like to shoot as slow as I can, you know, like 1/60th to 320 are my favorites to shoot at. But then, of course, I have to go higher. And sometimes, you know, getting a fast shutter with some pinpricks works. But in general, I like to throw a little bit of movement through things. And, you know, I'm like on the ground. And anyway, I'll go through it. So we only did this once. And I can't help thinking whether I should have, what it would have been like to shoot this pinwheel at 8,000th of a second, but I only had one crack at it. And I can't remember the data, but it would have been around 500ths or something like that. But we only did it once, and that was them driving it back. You're talking about post-production. Now, usually when I haven't worked for a filmmaker before, about 3 or 4 weeks into it, they ask me if they can see a selection because it looks like I don't do anything. But I just channel my old PJ days and I just cruise around and get what I want. But with what I was doing with Mad Max, George asked me to show him some shots. So I was like, I've been doing some coloring. Do you mind? You know, I can send it back to what it was to original. Do you mind if I do some? He's like, no, Jason, that'd be great. I'd love to see what you're doing because, you know, we're still trying to figure out what we are doing, and it'd be good to see what you've got. I was having a lot of trouble getting through the dust and the smoke and everything else. And it was really tough. So I started using tonal contrast and things like that just to break it down a little bit. Then when I did that, it was like, oh, hold on, I can make my own post-apocalyptic world. And I get criticized a lot for what I've done with this because some of it, I get a bit of a halo around some of the images. For me, it's not an issue because of the process that, oh, look, there's a dust bunny up there. Got to get rid of that. So for me, it wasn't an issue because what I did was I wanted the post-apocalyptic world to age like human. Just because we're getting older and we are dying doesn't mean that we have to be ugly. So what I wanted to do with the world is I shot nearly the entire film with a polarizer on, even if the polarizer didn't do anything, because I wanted the skies to go grey wherever I could. I used a tonal contrast to replicate dehydration and aging. You know how we get wrinkles and tightens everything up. I wanted to show an aging planet in a post-apocalyptic world and just make everything just stick out, I guess. I don't know, to show a very thin atmosphere. So, and then the final thing that I did was that I put 3 to 7% straw through it. And for me, that was, the earth had been sucked of all its nutrients and the only thing left was uranium. And that was, I'm no scientist, so it's probably some other thing. But to me, it was, the uranium was seeping through the soil because that was the only, you know, the atmosphere and the earth was sucking up everything that was left. And I call it my yellow cake. George loved it. Then I had to go and tell the director of photography, who luckily for me is a great guy, Johnny Seal. And I said to Johnny, you know, oh, mate, I'm really sorry. George has asked me to have a look at some shots and I've been coloring. He said he wanted to see it. And it's like, do you mind? And it's like, no, Jace, this is great because we can't work out whether we want to go desaturated or saturated or black and white. So you can really help us with the look. So it ended up as this. This was my edit, and they didn't change anything from my edit whatsoever. When the film came out, they had saturated a little bit, but they loved it. And through the editing suite, George had Epson, who were really good to us, printed up 300 or 400 images for him, and they were all through the edit suites and the offices. George used to call this my Michelangelo. It was to influence the editors and everyone that came in there and to inspire them of what the film should have, you know, with just that realism, you know. And it was really cool for me. And I got rewarded with a one-line credit. You may not know, but you know, getting a one-line credit is just never happens for a still photographer. And it was really cool. It was like, I was very lucky. You know, you can see the haloing here. Like I said, it was the way I looked at it was like, you know, when you're underwater and you shoot underwater, and the closer you get, the clearer it gets. And for me, that was how it was. It was a dirty, filthy, disgusting atmosphere, and I had to penetrate it somehow. And that was how I did it. And you know, the halo effect, I can get rid of that probably in about 30 seconds. It added for what I did. And, you know, I was one of the war boys, you know. I'm in the vehicle with these guys and I'm telling them, you know, turn around for the shot. And, you know, you got the driver down the bottom and he's on the gun. And, you know, I was a war boy. It was really cool like this, you know. I'm in the back of the war rig in the Volkswagen part. And, you know, I'm shooting out through the back window of the Volkswagen. You know, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, making yourself a part of it and getting as close as you can. You know, as I said, although, you know, you also got to use a long lens because they, you know, they work as well. I love this. I want to see this one on a T-shirt. I think it'd be rad. So, this one actually, this shot here of Furiosa hangs in the Academy of Arts and Sciences in a permanent exhibition there, and it nearly didn't happen because it was a shot on a camera vehicle and it was in the way everywhere that I was like, damn, I can't. It was like doing my head in, and it was at the end of the day. So I thought, nah, I'll just go and check this spot on the way walking to the car park. And the car park is a desert, so, you know, it's like in the middle of the desert. We all had 4-wheel drives. So I'm walking on the way there. And, you know, I've got my probably D4S, I think it was, and, you know, 7200. And I look around and I'm like, oh, there might be a shot there. So this is, you know, Furiosa screaming in the desert. And, you know, you can see the whole layering and the tonal contrast. And this is probably 7% straw through this. So, you know, my whole yellow cake. And I like it, as I said before, I like a dirty frame. I don't care if there's blemishes. The world is not perfect. People aren't perfect. And photographs don't need to be perfect. And you know what? I don't actually care, and neither should you guys. If you love an image that you've taken, then you should love it for no other reason than the fact that you enjoy it. You know, you see, you know, you guys see it, same as I do on Facebook, and, you know, people ask for critique and then someone will go and absolutely rip it to shreds and slam them. And it's like, hey, buddy, that is totally unfair because they saw something, they're learning from it, help them. But don't just say that it's a pile of crap, because to that person, it's not a pile of crap. I get people saying, oh, I could have done better. And it's like, you know what? You probably could have. But it's important to love your own work and to enjoy your own work and to give it everything that you've got and to learn from it. You know, like I said before, it's like, you know, shooting manual. It allows you to see the light and to learn light, you know, like. So I hope you guys have seen some of these shots before and you're understanding now what I was saying about the film still photographer, you know, like myself and my buddies, and you don't know who we are, but, you know, it's pretty hard to have not seen some of our images from our careers. And this was like, I love that it was, I got to do one just on Mad Max. There's so much of this film was biblical and like a Western. And I don't know if there's such a thing as a biblical Western, but if there is, it's definitely Mad Max. And just, you know, the hand coming up and just popping into frame. That's what I'm saying. You know, you can keep your frame dirty and, you know, you don't have to show everything. It's just little bits and pieces. And for me, like I said, you know, I commit to a lens and I let it happen. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Don't overthink your photography. Just let it flow, you know, because you've already seen it. You've already clocked it in your head. And just move that camera around. And I throw cameras around like I'm a cine movie guy. I don't know. There's just something to about movement and that. Now, when I shot this one of Morton Joe, I thought it was going to be like this classic Hollywood image, but it's not really. I mean, it's a good shot, but I thought it was going to be like this massive, big billboard all over the Hollywood. But I mean, there's a lot going on. I had to fight for this shot. It was a fun day, I got to say that, with Miss Giddy and great guy here. Now, I always say with photography that it's patience and timing. For the film still photographer, probably even more so the patience part. With Mad Max, I would spend days where I would have to sit around all day. I'd be like this little school kid with my school bag on my backpack on my shoulders, ready to go to first day of school for 2 weeks before school started. And so I'd be in my harnesses. I'd have all my safety gear hanging off me everywhere. And I'd be waiting to be able to get a ride. The guys would all understand that I had to do it. And the thing about what I do is you've got to pick your battles. It's knowing when to walk away from a shot. You've got to pick your battles. And if you're smart and you're willing to walk away from something, then when you are there, then the rest of the crew, everyone will be very helpful for you to get it. This was the last run of the day, literally the last 3 minutes of the day. And I was watching this whole scene unfold before me for 9 hours and 57 minutes. And it was killing me. It's absolutely killing me. And as you can see where they're pointing, the movie camera is filming in between the Luger and the flare gun. So, you know, I kind of wanted that shot, but this was all I got. I couldn't get anything else. I'm harnessed in, right? So I can move about this much, right? So I'm like, but it worked good for me framing it around the doorway and the tonal contrast again, you know, it tightens everything up. It was the last light, so it's perfectly balanced. You know, it's intense. And it was used, you know, it was used everywhere. And, you know, this is an example of what I was saying to you guys. You know, most people would look at it, hopefully think that it's a pretty nice frame, but to realize that it's got nothing to do with what they were shooting, and I've just had to pick up the scraps. It's about making the scraps look edible, you know? So, yeah, there you go. Oh, there's me at work. Anyway, that's me up a truss tower, and I had to abseil down to get up it, and then if I had fallen off, it was 494 metres down. It was Mount Rossing in Namibia. So there's me again with the boys. That's over to the right down here. That's Johnny Seal, our director of photography. You know, this is on one of the camera trucks, about ready to go off. You can see all the safety gear that we've got on there. You know, you can't be too cautious. There you go, Ross. If Ross is watching, this is what you get sent when I get back from work. Now, I can't really wrap my cameras up too well because I can't afford anything. If anything flies off and gets into the shot of the movie, then I'm toast and no one will ever let me put a camera rig up ever again. So this is a good example of, you know, that's the scaff mount that I showed you before. And this is a D700. But, you know, I mean, I can do this because of the weather sealing on the Nikons. You know, it's legendary. And, you know, you just leave it out in the open. And as I was saying before, you know, we're very much a team. And if I go through this, then I expect my cameras to go through it. I'm not getting a lot out of the image once it's got that much dust on it, for obvious reasons. But, you know, I'd clean my sensor when it needed to be, so to speak. I'd get a bit of dust around the edges of the frame, which I'd have to take out. You have no idea how this stuff was so fine. It was mica. It was hell for the crew and it was hell for cameras. So yeah, that's what I do with my gear. Matrix. So this is probably my big break. For many, many years, I could have just had, you know, a one-line credit matrix, and I would have got work. That was probably my first big poster. I've still got that one hanging on my wall, actually. I put this one in here because when I first shot, this is what I was talking to you before about, you know, your back catalogue. When I first shot this, I hated it. There's nothing that I liked about it at all. Yet my style of photography hasn't changed. And this is more indicative of what I shoot now. It was only like, you know, 5 years ago or something like that. Well, I looked at it, it's like, oh wow, that's actually pretty good storytelling. It's got the entrance down the lifts. It's got the exit for him through the telephone line. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on. Actually, in this scene, my buddy in a pullback during the middle of the fight got knocked out behind this column. One of the stunt guys. Anyway, sidebar. So that's what I was saying about, you know, going back through back catalogue and seeing what you were like as a photographer a long time ago and seeing how you've grown into it. And, you know, for me, as I get older, there's longevity in still photography. Guys that are, you know, in the late 60s and mid 70s that are still doing it. And it's really interesting to watch because you get more comfortable with your photography and then it's all about just refining it. You know, I have a lot more time on set now because I'm not standing around begging to find an image. I know what I'm going to get out of it. And then I can, as I said, you know, I can refine that. And this is more my style now than what it was then, which is, and I think that I've just grown into being that photographer. And in those early days when I was a kid, you know, I was like, you know, mid-20s or late 20s or something, I didn't appreciate the photographer that I probably was. You know, like I said, you know, I'm not an artist. I don't look at myself as being an artist. I'm solely a storyteller. And it's really, it's nice to look back on the older stuff. This shot of them on top of the lift, Neo and Trinity, when we get sent images, style images for, if you're doing a poster shoot, they'll send the photographer who's doing it, you know, style guides. But I still, to this day, get sent my own images as a style guide. And this one always pops up, and which is pretty funny. So, which I had not much to do with the style. All I did was press the button. Now, this was so much fun, this scene with Smith and Neo duking it out in the rain. We used to call this chubby rain. We shot this for like 4 or 5 weeks. It was absolutely insane. And again, you know, going back to the F4S days, I believe this would have been, I just had one of those flimsy little rain covers and I shot in the rain the whole time with this would have been, because I was big prime guy in those days. So this would have been a 105 or a 135 F2. And I shot the 50mm lot as well. But Hugo, great guy, always turns it on. And this probably, if anyone's seen any of my images, this probably would be the one that you've seen. And I can like my own work, but I don't want to call this an iconic image. But if I was to think of any of my images along those lines of pop culture or whatever, it would probably be this shot here. And then, you know, that goes to show again, you know, the slow shutter in shooting action. And, you know, you can see it there. I would think with that rain, you know, that's got to be, I was shooting EPJ 320, push to the stop, so 640. So that would probably be, I probably wouldn't have been over 200th of a second, 250th of a second, wide open. And same with that was on the 50mm, I remember it. Because I have the RS, which I have up there. The Nikon, did you guys ever remember the Nikon RS underwater camera? Oh my gosh. One of the greatest cameras that Nikon ever made. And I think there was only like 100 of them made. It was a really small run. So I have a full kit, but the lenses were so sharp. And I used it for a little bit on this, but I couldn't use it for all of it, unfortunately. Morpheus, love photographing him. This is when he was jumping after that big scene when Neo, with the 50, I think it was a 50 cal, someone's going to correct me, but from the helicopter, and it was like the whole chain, bang, going on. And then Morpheus has jumped out to grab hold of the skids on the helicopter. And obviously he only did it once, but, you know, he jumped out and then he lands on his belly onto a mat. But, you know, these are the old manual focus days, again, 50mm. And it was like heart in your throat, waiting for the transparencies to come back from the lab to see if you nailed it or not. It's not like now where you can chimp away. Now, I always like to put this one in to show what a big stunt looks like. This is from a film called Stealth. As you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stunt guys, and there was three vehicles coming out of them as well. And so this is, no one got hurt. This is what the stunt guys do. You know, they choreograph this to absolute perfection. And that's a big bang. That's a whole airplane hangar going up there. We're a good 200 meters away, and you can still feel the heat ball smacking at you. And I love these stuff. It's so much fun. You guys should come to one of my workshops. They're a lot of fun. We set people on fire just like this. We set people on fire. We do high fall and we do like fight scenes. But this is my mate Bo, and whenever I come home and I get a little bit bored, it's like I ring up the stunt guys or I put on Facebook and it's like, hey, anyone want to anyone want some stunt shots? I need some Instagram content, and I'm a little bit bored. Let's go and do something. And so they turn on stuff like this. And I've got a good video. I'm not sure if it's on my YouTube channel. I think it might be. But I'm going to do an interview just with him and talk through what it's like to set yourself on fire. And anyway, so that's a lot of fun. So if you ever want to do it, I'm the only one that can take you on a workshop to do it. Now, Peter Pan, this is the first film. Matrix was the last film that I shot entirely on film. I tested a camera out for one day. Dear friend of all of ours at Nikon, Jan Holt, sent it out for me to test out. Before using it, I vowed that I would always be a film purist and I'd never shoot digital. And the second that I actually shot on digital, I turned around. This is within 5 minutes, mind you. I turned around to the same guys and said, this is the last film I'm shooting on film. And it was. And this Peter Pan, I shot entirely on digital, and it was, a lot of it was a D2H. I can't remember what this was. It was like 2.7 megapixel or 2.8 megapixel or something like that. But the reason why I show these images, and this is, they turned it into a poster, but the reason why I show these two images, apart from that, you know, it's pretty light, was that the lab that I was, that was looking after all my work, took them around to all the studios, and they would have my Peter Pan, and then I'd have some film images from another film, and they'd say, right, what do you guys want to go with? Do you want to go with this look or that look? And everyone pointed to the Peter Pan. And I said, well, this is digital. And everyone was fighting the digital in the beginning. I remember seeing this Time magazine cover, and it was all pixelated. And I'm like, well, I guess we're just going to have to get used to a lesser quality of image. That's what the world is going to get used to. And how wrong I was. Oh, this is the Mummy, Brendan Fraser. Now, this is at night time, actually. And he's a good mate of mine. And I told him that I always wanted to light an image just from muzzle flash. And so we went out and did it. But, you know, he was like, in the beginning, he had two pistols and he was like trying to do this. And I'm like, Brendan, you're never going to pull the trigger at the same time. I'm never going to get the muzzle flash at the same time. So honestly, we spent 80 rounds trying to do that. And then we went and did this. And I think I shot 200 rounds and I only got like 4 muzzle flashes. But I remember I shot it at an 80th of a second and like 5.6, or I think it was about 5.6. And I wanted to put this in too for you guys to show what a big film set looks like. That's actually Jet Li up the top there, believe it or not. But it's a big set. You know, this is quite a few years ago, but it still holds up today. You know, I mean, like, this is the playground I get, man. It's like, it's so much fun. It's like I turn up here and it's like, half the time I don't know where to look. It's a blast. So Denzel Washington, Big D, great to photograph. This is from the movie Safe House. And this is again what I was saying about, you know, trying to find an image that tells the whole story. As you can see, you've got, you know, the feet hanging out of the doorway. So clearly not a safe house. And just nailing that one image. And he's done like 4 takes of this. And this is the only one that he looked at me straight down the barrel. And I got one frame and that was it. Yeah, he's an interesting character. He's 100%. It gives it everything. Now, this is a cool story, and Chris, I know, wanted me to get to this one. So when we were shooting this, it was an interrogation scene, and I looked at the light, you know, the director of photography, Oliver Wood, and I turned around to the director and the first assistant director and gone, listen, guys, he doesn't do setups. I have to get in there. Yeah, okay. And I'm like, I promise you, this is going to be your poster. So I go in there and I go, oh, hey, Denzel, you know, just got to get... need an ID photograph. He goes, what do you need an ID photograph? And I've got my camera out like this, Gain 50mm. And I got 3 frames off. And he goes, we don't need an ID photograph. So I go, oh, okay, I got it, but thanks. And then walked out and there it was the poster. Mulan. Got to say, make sure you guys go and see this. This will be one of the most beautiful films that you ever see, ever. And Ife Liu, our actress, oh my gosh, she just turned every fight scene into a dance. And I'm not going to say much because I can't say much, but just beautiful, beautiful images. And this is all, I think I got like 4 or 5 posters from this battle scene. And same thing again, you know, action. I'm an action photographer, so they end up using my shots for the posters. So I'm a very lucky boy. And then this is actually one of my favorite shots. I sat around and waited for this shot for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Again, you know, coming down to the patience thing. I ignored what were with the coverage that the director was doing, because the relationship is the true relationship with Mulan. If anyone who's seen the animated film, is between her and her horse, and I had in my mind from the very beginning that I wanted a shot of them two looking in each other's eyes, and I didn't want to set it up, and this is what I got. So I was pretty happy. So there you go. I'm done. Sorry for taking all your time.
There's some questions that sort of are all pretty similar to others. One of the things that people have been asking is about how often do you spend on set? So if you've got a movie like, let's say, The Matrix, are you there from the day they start filming all the way through, or are you there for specific sessions as a group of photographers that only shoot, say, the action? How does it work?
No, I'm there every day. I'm just a normal crew member. You can never tell when the magic's going to happen. You know, I'll break down a script and I'll know which days are poster potential. But scenic coverage and that, and you just never know when the magic's going to happen. So as I showed you guys before, you know, it can happen in the last 3 minutes of the day. On set around camera, I'm very, very quiet. But when I'm off, I like to have a chat. And as you've probably noticed.
There's a bit of questions and commentary about your Mad Max Yellow Cake and Straw post-production. Are you talking about a post-production application when you're talking about Straw, or is that in camera? Straw is in when you put a color through an image, it's yellow, but I call it straw. You know, when you're in Photoshop, although in those days I was Elements because I was too tight to, I didn't want to pay for Photoshop because I had no reason for it. I only went onto Photoshop since Mulan, with Disney wanting me to record my smart objects. Before I did everything on Elements. $145 for 10 years. Thank you. And so do you get into the movie, and Mad Max is a different example, but let's say with Bond or Bourne, do you have to set up your photos to look like the film, like the way they're filming? I mean, I'm hired to do a creative job. For me to replicate the director's vision is not only presumptuous, but impossible. For me to get that exact look, they have to remove the camera, me jump in front, and the actors do exactly what they want. I treat it like as I said before, I treat it like I'm a photojournalist, and what's happening in front of me is a very real situation. That's just how I deal with it. I want it to be mine. I don't want it to be someone else's. Even with the lighting, you know, I've got a director of photography there, but they're lit for something else, and I'll go and find light that'll work for me, which won't work for them. So you've got to be yourself. You're bringing your storytelling to the table. The way I look at it is I'm telling the story of the director's storytelling. I'm the photojournalist embedded into the real life environment which he's created. Does that make sense? So, yeah, absolutely. So without getting into contracts and et cetera, when you take all these photos, who owns the image right? I don't have any rights. We get paid very well, I have to admit. I'm quite comfortable with that. It's not my vision. I'm just the photographer taking the images. Would I do anything else? No. I mean, like, I can probably give that up and be the poster photographer and own rights and get a lot more out of it. But I like being there. I like capturing, you know, I think it comes back to my newspaper days. I like capturing the raw emotion, and, you know, my style's always been described as real, raw and dirty. And I like that. I like impurities. I don't want people to look at my image and say it's pretty or beautiful. Although maybe when you see more Mulan stuff, people might do that. Yeah, I want you to look at it and feel it's real. I want you to feel like I've taken you to this place and it's happening right in front of me. You know, it's like that's sort of saying to you guys before, it's like, as photographers, we see something, and it's the skill is to lay what we see onto that sensor and, you know, into a print or, you know, onto your computer screen later. You know, that's the real skill of photography, I think. It's not about sitting there and, you know, if you can't get a photograph sharp and you can't get the exposure right, well, then you need to practice a little bit more. That's not to say you're not going to do it, because you can be the photographer you dream to be. You know, I'm 100% proof of that. I never believed that my job existed, and I don't forget it any day. You know, I work just as hard today and tomorrow than what I did on Matrix all those years ago. And
you never know when you're the best. It could be yesterday, today, or tomorrow. So you've got to continually strive to, lift your game. And, I'm doing my best work now. And I'd love to have a second crack at something like Matrix. It'd be insane. And I don't mean the next Matrix. I mean the actual Matrix that I did. If I could do that again, it would be interesting to see how different I'd do it.
Sorry, I keep watching Ryan Reynolds. I love Ryan Reynolds. So that leads to, so how do you apply for jobs? Do you apply for jobs like a normal person goes to Seek and LinkedIn?
I don't do LinkedIn because LinkedIn just basically advertises to everyone who your clients are. It should be called poached in or something like that. For me, I'm hired by the studios, the filmmakers, or the actors. I get requests for that. The level that I'm at now, I get the call, which I'm really lucky. I still have to negotiate. I still have to compete, and I still have to have the goods. But luckily for me, as I said, I shoot action films and I have a style that a lot of the studios like. So if you're asking as a young photographer trying to get into it, well then, yeah, you have to graft about knocking on those doors and never giving up. It's going to take a long time. But if you really want to follow down this path of photography, you can do it because there's a lot that'll fall on the wayside. But if you believe in yourself, you can do it. Go and photograph theatre, live theatre, go and do short films, go and do student films. You never know who that director that you're working for in the student film is going to be. It could be the next Paul Greengrass, and he's going to remember you and say, thanks, buddy, for doing my short film.
So how many cameras do you take on set?
Well, when I go away, I travel with about 100 kilos of gear. Probably 30 to 40 of that is my rigs. And in my rig bag, I have 4 cameras. And then in my blimps, 2 of them, 2 D5s in there with 24 to 70 and a 70-200. And then I have my Z system, which I have 2 Z system, which I have 2 Z6s and a Z7. And then I also have a D850 for poster work. The Z system, I have most of the primes, and I have the 24 to 70, and I have the 70-200 on the way at the moment, which I can't wait to get. Honestly, the Z system's completely revolutionized my world. The V3 firmware, I did a test just recently on this film, which was a bit of a nothing shot, but it was a good opportunity to bring out the D5 and test it against the Z6. And the Z6 was not fooled in the low light, low contrast light. There was no marked difference between the D5 and the Z6. For me, there is a difference when I shoot action because I need the 3D, and that's why I love the DSLR, the 3D autofocus, because as I showed, me throwing a camera around, I don't have time to change it. I might have people crossing and I need that tiny little spot to stick. And the camera keeps up, 3D keeps up. So I really love that.
And you shoot continuous frames, so continuous high?
Yeah. I mean, because I shoot action is, I do hose it down, and people have another saying for it, which I don't like. I can't remember what it is exactly. So, oh God, what is it? Someone's going to remember what it is. It's spray and pray, which is an absolute load of garbage because it's not spray and pray. Because when we're shooting action, and all you guys that shoot action out there know, we know when that moment starts, right? You're pretty much guaranteed, you can feel it and you press the button, but none of us can dictate or possibly know when that action is going to finish. So I follow it through just like a golf swing, So I'm bang on the trigger the second that it starts, and then I follow it through until it's completely over. It's like, when you got your shooting a video and you stop the video that 2 or 3 seconds too early, and you look at it later, you're like, damn, should have kept it rolling. Keep your camera rolling. Keep your finger on the button when you're shooting action because you don't know when it's going to finish. Anything could happen.
So a couple of questions on the Z. Why do you like the Z series lenses? What is it about them?
That fast. The quality, the 85 and the 50 are some of the sharpest lenses that I've got in my bag. I was in Thailand on a film late last year, and the 85 had just come out, and I had this really big action scene, and it was really super low light. The primes, the S primes, are pin sharp, wide open, like nothing on this planet. I mean, they are beautiful, and they're only like 1.8s. I can't wait to see this 50mm 1.2 that comes out. Oh my gosh, that's going to be spectacular.
You said before you shoot a lot of manual focus. Does the autofocus in the Z, the face detect and the eye detect, does that change your philosophy on how to focus on set?
I don't shoot much manual focus at all. It was only in the D4, the F4 or S days and stuff like that. For the last 10 years, it's been all autofocus. The face recognition is astounding, and and so is the eye detect as well. I mean, for me, it's not as critical as other people. I mean, if I'm shooting a portrait, I will go on to manual, but that's about the only time I'll do it. And I use the focus peaking. I love the focus peaking. I mean, honestly, the mirrorless is what the film still photographer has waited for their entire careers. I'm like, I've got the screen. It's like, I can shove a camera wherever I want. I can't get my big head in there, but I can shove a camera in there, and it's like, you're off to the side, so you're not even a distraction. You can just, shove a camera anywhere, hide it, and you can get those awesome low angles. And I spent so much of my career lying on my belly trying to get these awesome heroic shots, and now I can just sit there on an Apple box and like I said before, phone it in.
Well, Jason, I think it's been a wonderful night. I know it's been a wonderful night, and I think the one thing that's come out of it is we're going to start a genre called biblical westerns, and I think that's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens here. I want to thank you, Jason, because your time is invaluable to us, and every time we listen to you talk, it's great to get an insight into a world that we just don't have an insight to, us regular people with normal jobs. So it's been fantastic hearing you talk. I've really loved having you here and behind the lens, and appreciate everything. Have you got any last minute comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, I do actually. I'd like to thank you because you've been a wonderful host. You steered me in the right direction, and I think that what you're doing here, these are legacy interviews and educational, and it's something that's allowing us as photographers to leave our story behind and help other people. The way that I shoot photography isn't necessarily how everyone here is going to shoot it, but I hope that in some ways it gives a little bit of reassurance to the ones that aren't quite as confident as what I might be. I hope it does give you reassurance that you're on the right track and to keep plugging away. And to those professionals out there, I hope I didn't bore you too much, and I hope that you got something out of it as well. And like I said, you guys feel free to send me a message on Insta or, email, whatever. And for some reason I don't get back to you, it's because I forgot, and give me a rev up and say, you promised you'd get back to me. Like what Chris is doing, I've been doing some interviews too, more film industry orientated. So hook by the YouTube and give me a subscribe if you can, and ding that bell. What we're doing is very much in conjunction, and I really love what Nikon's doing with these, and thanks for having me. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, wonderful. Jason, we'll send out an email tonight, which will be all of the contact details for yourself, your Instagram, of course, and YouTube. And we look forward to growing your sponsorship, your subscribers through the roof for YouTube. So appreciate it. For everyone else, thanks for joining us today.
Well, team, I hope you enjoyed my chat with Nikon Australia and Chris Dalton. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys learn a few things. And like I said, my style of photography isn't for everyone, but I'd like to know that maybe the way that I shoot is some sort of reassurance for you guys that you're on the right path as well. Please subscribe and do the bell so that you can be notified next time we've got something on. And also in the comment section below, if you want me to do another video of anything else, let me know. All right. Have a great day. Cheers.